This is a pre-recorded training video by Manchester Diocese Board of Education. If you have any questions about the content of this video, you can get in touch with Terry Hart, Assistant Director of Education. If you have any questions around administration, accessing these videos in the future, or you'd like to have access to other communications, please contact Joanne Reddy. Hello, this training video is all about SIAMS 2023. My name is Terry Hart and my details are on the screen if you want to make contact about any of the content you will find throughout this video. The main purpose of this session is going to be to explore the framework. That's all we're doing. We're exploring and introducing in this video. We'll touch on each of the inspection questions and some possible strategies, but the main focus will be the approach, what it is like to experience an inspection under the 23 framework. All documents that will be referenced through the session and all documents about SIAMS inspections generally can be found on the Church of England website. If you want to pause this video at this point and source these, you're more than welcome to. I've put the steps on the screen there for you, so you'll be able to click your way through and navigate the website easily to find them, going from home to about education and schools, church schools and academies, and then you'll find the tab for SIAMS inspections. Everything you need is on that page. It's quite a lot of information. You can scroll all the way down and find the chunk of downloadable material. Specifically, I'd suggest you download the inspection framework and the information for schools document. You'll find these particularly useful as you start preparing. If you'd like to check also if you're on the schools likely to be inspected list for the academic year, you can download that too on this section. If you're not on the list, it's most likely you're not going to be inspected. However, if you're on the list, it's not a guarantee you will be inspected. It just means you're likely to be. You may be carried over to the following year. So what's the approach? SIAMS, the Statutory Inspection of Anglican and Methodist Schools, sits under Section 48 of the Education Act. Each summer term they release a list of schools likely to be inspected in the following academic year. If you're on the list, there's a good chance you'll be seen, but there have been cases in the past where schools have been carried over into the following year. This is only if you have got that period of time allowing for that. You must be seen at present in the 8 years, and very shortly, I assume, we'll go back to the 5-year expectation. You receive a 1-week notice call. It's a call from the admin team to just let you know that you will be inspected in 1 week's time. When you receive that call, you'll also receive an email from them, and will receive that email as well at the Diocesan Board of Education. Later on in that day, you'll receive a call from the inspector who will be carrying out your inspection. They'll have a conversation with you about context. They really want to find out about the community you are serving as a school and how you are doing that. They'll request some evidence to support it. Some will be performance-related, demographics perhaps. You can at that point, if you wish, and I'll talk about this in more detail further on in the video, you can provide them with a summary evaluation form. Once the inspector has this, they then start to create the PIP, the pre-inspection paperwork. The main aspect of this is the lines of inquiry, the LOEs. These will tell you specifically what the inspector is looking for in the different areas based upon the evidence you've given them. The lines of inquiry are really important. They're going to shape your inspection, inform meetings, provide direction in observation and conversation. When those LOEs come through, it would be a really good idea to share them with the wider team. Perhaps even highlight these with governors, stakeholders, so that they're able to articulate and represent your school fully in those conversations. The inspector wants a true picture of your school, a true picture of all that you're achieving there, your vision, your purpose, and how it is lived out. In order for them to do that, a timetable will be crafted of what the inspection will look like. If you're a primary school, or a VC secondary, it will be a 1-day inspection. If you are a VA secondary, then you will have a 2-day inspection. Be reassured that the process is collaborative. The inspector will ask questions, will dig deep, will encourage you to present all the evidence necessary for them to make the correct judgment, the right judgment for your school community. Throughout the inspection, there'll be opportunities for feedback from the inspector where they can give you an idea of the direction of travel at present and anything that they need. But at the end of the inspection, there'll be a full feedback session involving head teachers, chair of governors, a representative from the DBE to share the final judgment that's made on the back of the inspection process. As part of this, it's common that areas of strength would be shared, but also some areas for development as well. These are the 2 judgments that can be made on the back of a SIAMS inspection. The first one is that the inspection findings indicate that the school is living up to its foundation as a church school and is enabling pupils and adults to flourish. The second, the inspection findings indicate that the school has strengths, but that there are also issues that leaders need to address as a matter of priority. These are listed in the areas for development. Be reassured that this is not a pass and fail process, but the correct judgment needs to sit alongside where you are as a school. And there may be some aspects that do need to be addressed. Hopefully, these will already have been identified by school leadership as part of your self-evaluation. Nowhere in your inspection report will it say J1, J2. But the flavour of this will come through. So how can you evidence all that you need to evidence to enable the inspector to see, to hear, to read everything necessary to make the correct and most suitable judgment for where you are? Well, firstly, you can download the ongoing SEF from the section of the Church of England website that I've already directed you to. This is just for you. The inspector doesn't see this. You and your team can gather around it and populate it over time and keep on adding to it as more takes place. As you create an ongoing SEF, you may want to point out areas where you could provide evidence other than just written lists of facts and figures, but actually add a richness to that SEF. We'll talk about that more as we go down through the list. Before inspection, you need to summarise that SEF if you choose to use it and get it down to about 5 sites. No more than that. It needs to be accessible for the inspector and not overwhelming so that they can read through it and really tease out some of the key aspects of work that you're doing. The ongoing SEF and the summary SEF are optional. National SIAMS has made a real effort to make sure that the inspection does not create a huge amount of extra work. Obviously, there'll be some elements you may wish to do, but we don't want that to be a compulsory part of the process. Through the timetable of meetings and observations, a great deal of evidence will be gained, and the inspector will record lots and lots of evidence for the different lines of inquiry throughout all of that. So we need to make sure that they have an opportunity to see as much as possible in that short period of time that they're in the school. The framework is designed around 3 questions. We'll look at them in a moment. Answering those 3 questions well will enable them to have everything they need as they inspect your school. The third of the questions is split up into 7 inspection questions. 6 if you are VC or former VC. The 7th is the quality of RE. You may wish to create an evidence base for each of those IQs. Perhaps an individual file or folder, perhaps including pictures, examples of work, examples of events, even case studies at points. It's up to you, and you can be as creative and present this in whatever way you wish. Or you can rely entirely on just the timetable of meetings and observations. It's up to you. My preference, if I'm honest, is that I would have a file for each of the IQs that would be populated by the people who are specialists in each of those areas, and they would take those into their meeting with them. They would have the evidence base that they could refer to, and this would really ensure that they've got that confidence to be able to articulate whatever it is that they're sharing with the inspector. And it would also enable the inspector immediately to be able to triangulate the evidence. So it's not just what is spoken to them, but they can see the evidence throughout. So we welcome this degree of flexibility in how we evidence everything that's taking place in our school. But I suppose the main thing we need to think about is, where is the impact? Whatever we put forward needs to evidence the impact of what we're doing. And that's us saying, this is the needs of our community. This is how we are meeting them. The first of the core questions, of the three core questions, is who are we? This is all about the demographics, the community that you're serving in that place. So you'll want to gather all this together. You know this. These are all those percentages about groups, about the nature of the community. If you are going to put in their percentages and you can make a comparison to national, that's really useful. And this isn't just for SIAMS. This is really good to share with your teams as well, to help them see the picture of who it is you're serving in that place and have perhaps a better understanding of some of those needs that present themselves and can at times be a challenge. So to answer this first question, you'll see if you choose to use the summary CEF, the ongoing CEF, there's a box that you can populate with all of this information, much like you would do for an OSCE inspection. And again, I'm sure that you have all of this information readily available. The next core question is, what are we doing here? And this relates to the vision of the school. After recognising who they are serving and what the needs of the community are, then the school has crafted a vision in the hope that in the future they will meet those needs, and it is very much future facing, a journey that must be travelled. So in this section of the self-evaluation form, the vision is placed. There will obviously be a section as well you're going to want to put in how your vision is lived out, and that may be through a set of values. If so, reference will be made to those values here also. And the final question, how then shall we live once we know who we are serving, how we desire to serve them? What will we do day to day in order to travel between those 2 points, the now and the next? To answer this question, National SIAMS provides 7 individual inspection questions. I'll go through them on the next slide. The 7 individual IQs then. IQ 1, how does the school's theologically rooted Christian vision enable pupils and adults to flourish? How does the curriculum reflect the theologically rooted Christian vision? How is collective worship enabling pupils and adults to flourish spiritually? How does the theologically rooted Christian vision create a culture in which pupils and adults are treated well? How does the theologically rooted Christian vision create an active culture of justice and responsibility? 6, is the religious education curriculum effective? And 7, what is the quality of religious education? I'm hoping that leaders will be able to look at these set of 7 questions and be able to identify key people who would be able to tell this part of the school's story. How you evidence the impact in these areas and what you're actually doing is up to you, as I say, going back to those first couple of slides earlier on in the video. You can create an ongoing CEF if you wish, capturing everything, and then files of evidence to support that so that it can be easily triangulated. That's just for you to use through the inspection to show and make reference to the inspector at certain points. To create that summary CEF, that 5 sides of A4, which is going to capture that snapshot of the impact of everything you're doing in terms of progression along with the vision, and give that to the inspector. Through all those meetings with individuals, perhaps that you're looking at this list thinking, oh, actually that person would be really good for this this meeting. That group of parents will be wonderful to be able to talk about this element. I'm hoping this session has really started to get you think about the process, the approach, and actually how you can prepare in that to ensure that the school story is told well on that inspection day. Following this video, there will be 7 other videos, one on each of the IQs, going in detail to explain actually what the theme is, what the inspector may be looking for, as well as examples of possible things you could have done already and how the impact will be there. For many of you, you'll be doing this already. There'll be nothing that you need to add, but it will be how explicit those things are. I want to step and just have another look at evidence as we bring this to a close. So we consider now, going back to this list of points of possibilities how you may evidence the impact that your vision is having and the living out of your vision is having, perhaps with that set of values, on that community that you serve. And how are you going to take such anecdotal, such broad, that lived experience, how are you going to take that and condense it into an evidence base that someone from outside your community can come in and access and understand? Is it going to be that you now start this ongoing SEF, working with your wider team, perhaps identifying key people over each of these areas to be able to feed into that and keep on top of that then over that period of time up to inspection? If you do that, then are you going to be in a good position to summarise that down to those 5 sides for the inspector? Maybe consider, actually, in a timetable of meetings, who could I call on to tell the story? And go back to that information for schools document, which will give you some examples of the types of things that will be present in the timetable, timings as well, but the groups that could interact and tell your story to the inspector. I ask you to reflect on those 3 questions. Asking about the who in the community, okay, the what that you're doing there, and the how of how it's being lived out. I said 6 or 7 evidence bases. If you are VC or former VC, you're only going to be inspected on IQs 1 through 6. If you're VA, former VA, you'll have IQ 7 in there as well about the quality of RE. How are you going to start collating those evidence bases? How is it going to be workable for you and support you through telling this story on the inspection day? Are you going to look at this file for each IQ? Is that something you're going to look at now? Or are you going to have a large folder that's all separated? Or are you just going to share evidence as needed? Is it going to be a collection of pictures, perhaps tweets even? Where are these all being stored? Are they accessible? Where are the examples of what you're doing? Perhaps examples of collective worship, examples of evaluations, examples of case studies. Is all this to hand? I hope that having this time to reflect upon SIAM's process and approach has given you a good foundation, good starting point for you to really start to reflect now on the wider framework and how your school is indeed living up to its foundation as a church school. If you have any questions, then please do get in touch. The email was on the first slide. You can go over this video as many times as you want or share it with link governors, whoever is necessary, to give everyone else that good foundation. I ask you to go back to the newsletter, from which I imagine you've accessed this video in the first place, and book on to the IQs. Many of them will be a video release for this academic year, so you'll get them in this format and you can work through them together, and there'll be lots of suggestions of evidence bases that you could have for each of those areas. Thank you.